In this Python project, we're going to create a very simple video editor and go over the main concepts how video editing actually works. So we are going to create an application that can import videos. So for example, here we're going to import a music track here, and we're going to import a video file here. Then we're going to create some epic thumbnail, for example, and we're going to process that. We're going to pick an output folder, and then we're going to process those files here. So what we are going to do is create a thumbnail, go through all the frames that go into a video. Then we are going to merge the music and the video to create some type of background music. We are going to add a text overlay over our video, and we are also going to create a few little things on the way to show you how you could expand this project and create a video editor with much more functionality. So video editing is a resource intensive thing. So in order to work with those videos, the processing takes some time. You know this probably by yourself as well. If you've ever used the video editor or rendered something, it takes quite some time to render a video. So this is something that we are going to create, for example. We are also going to pick different images out of it, add an overlay as already mentioned, create some GIFs as well, compress those files in order to make them take less space, and so on. So let's see how our development road is going to look like. First of all, we're going to have a small intro where we're going to get familiar with the basics, set up the environment, things like FFmpeg and ImageMagick. We're going to install all the required dependencies, which is MoviePy in this case. After that, we are going to develop our GUI, just the basic functionalities, how to work with files, how to work with directories, how to search for certain files, import them, export them, open file dialogues, and so on. And in the end, we're going to use all that and edit the core functionality. We're going to call different functions that can do different types of video editing. And it's all going to be created in a quite extensible way so that you can always add new features or develop in a certain path that's different from what I am going to build out. So if this sounds interesting, let's get started. Okay, let's get started. I have a blank project here opened with my favorite editor, which is Visual Studio Code. So as in all projects, let's first of all create a source folder. So we have a source folder, and since we are also going to have some data in the format of videos and audio files, we are going also to create a new folder called data. Inside of the data folder, we are going to have a new folder named input, and we are going to create a new folder named output. In the source folder, let us first start by creating a simple Python file and call it editor.py. The first thing we need to do is install MoviePy. So let's do that. Pip install MoviePy. I have already installed MoviePy, so I'm going to see requirements already satisfied. But if you haven't, you should see a lot of different things being installed right now. After you have installed MoviePy, in order to extract the maximum potential out of it, you're going also to need to install FFmpeg and ImageMagick. So navigate to FFmpeg, and as you can see, you can just download FFmpeg here, and installing it is quite simple. You just extract it, move it to some location, and then create a path in your environment variables that points to it. But in this case, you're going to install ImageMagick in order to be able to do more stuff. As you can see, you can use ImageMagick to create, edit, compose, or convert bitmap images. It can read and write images in a variety of formats, including PNG, JPEG, GIFs, and so on. So we're going to need to use FFmpeg for our video and audio files, and in order to create thumbnails, images, and GIFs, we're going to use ImageMagick. But when installing ImageMagick, we can automatically install FFmpeg with it. So navigate to Downloads. Since I'm on Windows here, go to the Windows binary release and just pick the first one here. Click on Download and Save File. Wait for the file to download. After the file is downloaded, just click on it. Click Yes. Accept the agreement, next. And here you can also specify to install FFmpeg with it. After you have installed ImageMagick and FFmpeg, it is now time to get some sample data. In order to get some sample data, I download most of my videos, most of my audio from the YouTube audio library, but you can download anything you would like. For example, you could just type in free video files download, and the one I mostly navigate to is pixels.com, where you can just choose any files you would like to download. Okay, since I have downloaded those here, I'm going to copy them inside of my video editor. Great. As you can see, the files are here now. So we have some sample data. We have installed all the requirements we need. So the next step is to actually import the files that we need. So the dependencies that we need. So let's first import OS. We're going to need to use OS in order to navigate through our directories and libraries and find the exact locations for the things we are searching for. Now we are going to import from MoviePy.editor import star. We are going to import tkinter as tk for our graphical user interface. So we're going to use tkinter for that. And also from tkinter, we are going to import file dialog. So we're going to need to use the file dialog in order to browse the files that we would like to use. So we don't have to actually specify the path. We can just click on select file, and then we can go through the file explorer and actually find the files. From pyl import image, import meme types. We're going to use this one in order to determine the types of files that we're importing. Is it a video, only audio video, or whatever type of files. Also import random for some name generation, and import string. We are going to use string. So a next thing is, it can sometimes happen that you get some type of problems or errors, and in order to resolve those, the following line will probably help you with that. So what could go wrong is that ImageMagick is not found somehow, that the location, the ImageMagick binary is somehow not really discovered by MoviePy. So in order to resolve that, import MoviePy config change settings. Now we can change settings by specifying ImageMagick binary to the following. Navigate to the installation location now, which is on the C drive, program files, and ImageMagick. So copy that and also add the magic k.executable. So just add the executable file here. Okay, great. So if you encounter any problems where you would see some messages like you probably haven't installed ImageMagick on your host machine or something like that, write this line down and this should fix most of the problems. Okay, let's play a little bit before we start developing the project. So first of all, let's call the following function: change directory. So the change directory is going to take in the current working directory, which in this case is going to be the directory where our Python file is going to run. So we have the editor.py file and it is going to run here. So this is our current working directory. But we want to navigate to the data.input directory in order to much more easier import the files we need. So then we could just type in the name of the file we need and not always search the absolute path for that. So in order to do that, let's navigate one directory back. Now we are in this root directory. Now navigate into data and input. Now let's get the current path. The current path is going to be os.path.directory name. And now we need to call the os path absolute path of file. So the file is going to be the editor.py file. So this is going to be that name. And then we want to extract the absolute path of this, so of the file that we are running in, which is editor.py. And we have done this here in order to navigate back to the source folder in order to be able to navigate into the data input folder. So let's print this current path. And of course, you can always revert to the documentation to see how OS works and to see more functionalities of it. So let's navigate to source and run python editor.py. Yeah, and this printed this path here, which is exactly the path we need, which is inside of data input. Okay, great. So what else can we do with it? There is also a very interesting function, which is walk, which is going to go through the directory we want to start with, and it is going to go either top down or bottom up and find all the files and directories inside of it, traverse the entire tree of files and folders inside of our source folder. So in order to do that, type in for root. We are going to extract root. We are going to extract directories, and we are going to extract files. OS walk. We are going to give the current path as a starting point and top down as false. So what we could do now is for name in files, we could print all the file names. So print os path.join. We can use join in order to join the root with the name, so that we don't only get the name of the file, but we actually get the entire location with it. So join is there just to concatenate those two strings. We could also do the same for directories. Name in dirs, print os path join root and name. Okay, let's run this. It takes a few seconds, and here we have the output. So this is our directory. We have one directory which is input inside of data, and we have all those files: track 1, 2, 3 and video 1, 2, 3. Okay, cool. So this should help you a little bit to understand how to find the right paths and folders in order to work for your projects. And this is something you can use for all types of projects. So let's comment this out. Now let's give you a little bit of introduction of how MoviePy works. So first of all, we need to import a clip, and for that we just need to specify the following: clip is equal video file clip. And now we just need to specify a location, so a path. Let's just copy the path here, copy path, and type in R. Okay, so now we have actually imported the entire file here, our MP4 file, inside of this clip variable. You can revert to the documentation for this. So if you navigate to MoviePy, you can see the documentation here. And for example, this is for video clips. So you can, for example, see all the parameters it uses. You can see all the functions you have with it. You can see how you can initialize it and so on. So for example, you have video file clips and image clips. So you can always go to the search docs here and, for example, type in video file clip, and this is the one we need here. So you can, for example, see how you can create one. This is exactly what we have done here, and you can see all the parameters, for example, the audio parameter, FPS source, and so on. So as we have mentioned those parameters, let's see what type of metadata we can actually extract from here. So one of the first things is to extract the clip size. So for that, you just type in clip size, and this should give us the width and height. Some other parameters you could use are, for example, duration from clip duration, and for example FPS from clip FPS. So let's print those, width and height. So for that we are going to print it like this. We are going to print duration, and we are going to print FPS. Yes, FPS. Now let's run this. It always takes a few seconds in order to run this, but okay, here it is. So width and height is 1920 times 1080. Our duration is 19.33 seconds, and we have a frames per second rates of 23.97. So always think about the following, that if you are working with video editing, this is a quite resource intensive operation, and it's going to require some time to process larger files. So this is only 20 something seconds or 30 seconds, but if you work with videos that are, for example, 1 hour long and you're processing them, so this is something that's going to be quite resource intensive and take quite some time. Okay, so let's comment this out. This was just a little bit introduction in order to get you familiar with how you can work with this. And now we can actually start developing our project. Okay, let's actually start developing the application. So first of all, let us create the graphical user interface. Like with most projects we're doing, we need some type of graphical user interface. So in this case, we're going to use tkinter to create the GUI with Python. So create a class, call it video editor GUI. And now let's pass tk frame in it, define an init function. I'm going to explain exactly what I'm doing here. Let me just type it out so it becomes more clear. Self master is equal to master. The indent here was wrong. tk frame init self master. So this is a way how to initialize a tkinter frame. So this is like a skeleton how it should be done. So the init function is going to run every time we create an object from our video editor GUI. So let's create the object to show you what I exactly mean by that. So let's check. and name is a variable like the file variable that we have used earlier that is going to have the name of the file that we are that is running. So in this case it's going to have the name editor.py, but if we run editor.py it's going to have the name main because it is the script that we are running. But if it was some other script that is just being imported and not run from there, then we would have the name of that script. So we don't need it in this case because we have only one script, but if we had multiple, it is always a good approach to do it. So first of all, let us create a root which is equal to tk. Let's give a title, call it video editor, and let's run the main app. So the main app is going to be equal to video editor GUI. We pass in the root and then we run it. Root main loop and start. Okay, so what have we created? We have created tk inter root object or root frame. This is going to be our root frame to which we add all the other frames as needed. Then we initialize our video editor class here and we pass the root as the frame here. Then we have a variable master which is going to be equal to that frame that we have passed. So the root is actually the master here. And when we work with frames and widgets and whatever inside of our application, we are working with the master. So this is just a way how to initialize those objects. And here we are just running, this is like a super constructor where we are running the init function from the tk frame. So this is just, this is a blueprint which you can use whenever creating those frames. So, and the main loop starts running the application. So this is also something you need to consider because the main loop, we have one thread and it is going to run in the main thread, which could be blocking the application as some tasks take longer. So we could spin up another thread and run, for example, the GUI in a different thread and the processes in another thread. But this is more complex and we are probably going to do this in another tutorial. So let us continue here. We're going to declare two more variables. So this is just the approach I use and it is widely used. So we are going to create the GUI, which is equal to configure GUI self widgets, which is equal self create widgets. And I do this approach on pretty much all the projects that use tk inter. So let's define those functions. Configure GUI, pass in self. So here we can configure the most important parts for our GUI. So like the dimensions of it, the location at where it should be spawned, and so on. So in this case, we're just going to configure the geometry. So in order to do that, remember, we pass the root to the master. So now we can access the master and configure the geometry, which in this case, we are going to make a window of 1280 times 760. Now we need to define the widgets, create widgets. We are again going to pass self. And here we are going to create all the widgets that we are going to require. So those are going to be a process button, an input button, and text button, text input. So the process will be, if clicked, will actually start the entire process and the processing of the files. We are going to have one to import our files, and we are going to have one widget that inputs the text. So it takes the text and puts it inside the video. So let's start with the process button. We're going to create a button here. We are going to pass in we need to pass in the frame that we are going to attach the button to, which is in this case the master or root. We need to pass some text for the button. We are going to call it process. We need to pass some fonts. I'm using across all the projects the same font here. We are going to give it a font size of 18. Pad X, let's say 10, and pad Y, let's say 5. We are going to give it a color of white. We are going to give it the background color of 3582E8. And now we need to pass in the command. So what scripts are going to be executed when pressing that button. And this is going to be the process data function, which we will add shortly. And now we need to add it to the grid. So process button grid sticky W. So the sticky parameter is going to stick the button in the exact position so it doesn't move if the spaces around it move. We are going to give it to be in the 0 column and row number 1. And pad X is going to be 10 and pad Y is going to be 10. So I skipped a little bit through explaining how the button works and what parameters it takes, because we have already done this in another project. But you can of course skip those projects and do it in a row as you would like. But still, I don't want to repeat myself too much, so that you don't get too bored actually with it. So if you're not understanding something, watch the other tutorials, watch the other projects, or refer always to the documentation. So let's continue with the import button. We can actually copy this here. And we can also copy the grid here. This is our import button. Now this is in row 2. And what we need to change here is we need to change this to import. And we also need to change the command. The command is not going to be process data, but it is going to open a dialog. So we can call the function open dialog. And now we just need an entry. So overlay entry is equal tk entry self master. We're going to provide it a width text, which is going to be equal title. We're going to give it a font. So let me copy the font here. Okay. Now we need to add it to the grid. So let me copy that. Okay, let us just reverse this to be row 0. So we have the import first, then we have the process button, and after that we have the entry. Doesn't really matter, but I feel it's more organized that way. So let us create those two other functions that we have just mentioned there. which will be define process data. Again, taking self as a parameter here. And we will also have the open dialog one. Define open dialog, again getting self as argument. And one thing I forgot here is we need to return that data. So we are going to return the overlay entry because we want to use it in a different function. So in this case, when we are creating those widgets here, we are passing the overlay entry back to those widgets, and we can later use this in other functions like dialog and process data. So what's next? What do we need to do in the dialog? We are going to have a variable self master file name, which is going to be equal to file dialog, as we have mentioned earlier. So the file dialog is able to open a dialog, and there is a simple function that we need to execute in order to run this, and this is just ask open file name. Ask open file name. Now we can pass an initial directory. So initial directory, in this case, let's start right at the beginning. We can pass it a title, which could be something like select your files. And we also can pass the file types. So the file types in this case would be, we are going to give just all file types a possibility here. So this is a way how we would do that. They are in this array here, and inside of that array we have a tuple. So it's going to be all files, and the type is star.star. Okay, now we could, let me just print processing here in order to remove the error. And now we could print that. So let's print self master file name. Okay, and let's try this out. So Python editor.py. Great, this is our application here. It has the size that we have provided. There is the import and process button, and here we also can type text for our video. So let's click import. Great, it opens a file dialog at the root here, and we can navigate and search for some files. So let's, for example, go here and click on this track, and it printed out the exact location of it. Great. So it was in data input track1.mp3. Perfect. So far, so good. The next thing we need to think about is storing the data in some type of objects. So we have done this in the other projects as well. So at this case, we would create a file object, which again would have that init here, self. Okay, now we need to define what are the things we need to save in such an object. So of course we need the path to a file. Next we need the label, and next we need a data type. So we are going to need the label because in order when we add a new file, we would like to add a label where it's written, okay, that and that file is important. And we would also like to know the data type. So we would like to know if it is a video or audio file in this case. So let's pass those variables. Self label is equal to label, and self data type is equal to data type. Okay. Now we also need to keep track of those objects. So we are going to create a new variable here, call this imported objects is an empty array here. Now we mentioned the variable of data type. So this is important because we are going to add music as background music to our video. So we need to know what is an audio file and what is a video file. So we could maybe get in a different way around this, but this is very useful to know for other projects as well. So let's go through this. We imported meme types earlier, and what this can do is meme types guess type. So it has a function that can guess a type. We are going to pass it the file name, and we are going to see if it starts with the following video. So when the meme type is going to guess the type based on the path that we have provided, and the first value of that array is going to be a bitmap in which we can see if it starts with video, and if it starts, so the metadata of it, and if it starts with a video, we know that this file is a video. So another way you could do this as well is check if it's an MP3 or MP4 file in our case, because MP3 files do not support video, but an MP4 file could also be just audio and no video in it. So this isn't so trivial to distinguish, but in most cases you should be able to check it in that way. So we are going to have a different outcome in the case that it is a video or an audio file. So let's open file label. So we are going to have a label for our open file. So we are going to create a new label here, pass it the master frame and anchor, and we are going to justify to left. And now we're going to give it some text. We can say location because we are going to display the location of our file. Self master file name that we have just imported, and we can also specify a type plus. So in this case it's going to be a video, and in the other case it's going to be audio file. So again, can make it a bit smaller, let's say 13. Now we need to add it to the grid again, so let's do that. Grid, we are going to make it sticky. We are going to give it a column of 0, and the rows will need to increase as we are adding new files. So for that we could see the length of imported objects, and as the length increases, as more objects are imported, the row is also going to increase. But we need to start with some value because we have buttons and text before that. So let's start in the 4th row. We're going to give it a pad x of 10 and a pad y of 2. Now it's time to create our file object because we have already all the data we need. We are going to pass the path, file name. We are going to pass the open file label, and we are going to pass it a parameter of video because this is a video. And we are also going to add it here in imported objects, append the file. Okay, and we have another case. If it isn't a video, so we're going to have an else statement here where we can copy most of this code. In this case, it's just going to be audio, and here it's going to be audio. Otherwise, it stays the same. Okay, this should be enough for our open dialog here. Let's test this out. Okay, let's go to import. Okay, this is the location of it, and let's import track 1. Great, now we have a label here that says the location of it and the type, which is audio. Let's import the video, call it video 1. Great, now we have a video, which is an MP4 here, and we have an audio, which is an MP3 here. Since our editor is very basic, it's only going to have 2 files. We could import more, and it will be maybe useful to give some type of error handling in the case that someone imports multiple files. But we want to keep it as simple as possible, and we don't want to focus too much on the GUI part of things. This goes more into the front-end development side of things. So we're just going to think about it and know how to use the tool without the error handling in place. Okay, let's continue here. The next thing we need to do is actually process the data. Before we actually process the data, we again need a new file dialog. So we need to open the file dialog and choose a directory where we want to save our files. So in order to do that, we are going to declare a new variable, which will be a directory name. We are going to call file dialog and ask directory. So this is going to open a file dialog again and let us search for a directory and just select that directory, and our files will be saved there. So let's do the following. File. So we are going to save a video file. So that's going to be a video name. We are going to create a GIF, which will be a GIF name. And we are going to create a thumbnail, which will be a thumbnail name. And all of those will have the directory name, of course, plus they will have some extension like the name of the video, and the extension, for example, MP4. So let's give a file name extension plus, since a video, we will add video, and we will add MP4 since it's a video. Let's repeat this. Now let's define our file name extension, which will be a slash. So we have our directory name. To the directory name, we are going to add a slash, and we are going to generate some random name. So this will be random string. We could also ask the user to provide a name, but we're just going to generate a random name here to make it as automatic as possible. So define get random string self and length. So we are going to define the maximum length that our random string can have, and this is the 8 here, so we could always change that. We're going to define letters. So here comes the string and ASCII lowercase. Then we are going to have a result string, which is an empty string, joined. So join with random choice letters for I in range length. Okay, and then we are going to return the result string. So we have basically just joined. So we are going to go through this range. This is a generator. We are going to generate values in the range, which is 8, so 8 times. And every time we are going to randomly choose a letter. So A, B, C, D, E, and we are going to randomly choose a letter B, for example, and we are going to do this 8 times, and every time we are going to concatenate it. And then we are going to return the result string, which will be here, which will go into those extensions here. Now we need to define a way to go through our list. So for file and self-imported objects, and we need to check, is it a video or an audio? And then we are going to assign those values, and then we are going to mix it later using MoviePy. So let's define a video clip found, which is equal to none, and let's define an audio clip found, which is equal to none. Now we can check, have we found those videos? If file, and now remember that file is our object of this, and this has a data type. So we can check if file data type is equal to video. We will write video clip found, so we will set it to file. And else if file data type is equal to audio, we will set the audio clip found to the file. So we will set it to the file, so it will actually be that object that we have stored here. Okay. Now when we finish searching for that, we are going to check if we have found both, and only if we have found both, then we are going to be able to process the file. So we are going to create a new clip as we have done earlier. So it is going to be a video file clip with the video clip found, and we are going to pass the path in. So now we have a clip. The next thing we need to do is add an overlay to our clip. So we are going to extract the overlay entry. We could name it whatever, but let's call it overlay entry. And we are going to extract it from widgets. Now clip overlay. And now we are going to create a text clip. When you refer to the documentation, it is very similar to a video file clip, but we can pass in more parameters. So let's create a text clip. So this is going to be our text inside the clip, and here we have our normal clip, and here we have the text clip, and we are going to merge those two together. So first, let us provide the text that we are going to have. So that's our overlay entry, and don't forget we need to call get on that. Now we need to give it some color. Let's give it blue. Now we need some font. This is some font I found in the documentation that looks quite nice. Kerning 5. Let's give it a font size of like 150. Now we need to set a position. We're going to put it in the center, and we need to set a duration. Let's give it 15 seconds. So this is as far as the creation of our overlay goes. So the next thing is we would like to create a thumbnail. In order to create a thumbnail, we need to get a frame from our video. So we could do this the following way, like frame is equal to clip and just call get frame. And if we again refer to our documentation, here could find get frame. So this is a function we can call. So if you need some different functions or are not sure how something works, always refer to the documentation. Okay, and now we need to give it some frame, and let's say it's going to be frame number 10. We could give something else here. We could maybe go through a for loop and do some other checks. That would be like for frame in clip get frames, I think. So I'm not sure, this is a great example. So I'm not sure how to get all the frames. Let's go to the documentation. So after looking for a few seconds, it's actually iter frames. So we could call iter frames to iterate through frames, so like here. So we have our clip here, and we could call iter frames and for frame in frames. So this is how we could check all the frames and maybe print them out or look at something about them and maybe pick the best image that we could use. For this, we could, for example, run a machine learning algorithm where we could try to determine which frames would fit best. So there is a lot of options you could do there and a lot of imagination possible there. So, but let's say we're always going to pick the 10th frame. So now we're going to create a thumbnail image. We're going to call image from array because our frame is going to be saved as an array of bytes. So that's the reason we're calling from array. Thumb image, save, and we're going to save it to thumbnail name. So this is going to be our path where we are going to save it. So that's basically it for the thumbnail. Now let's create some background music. In order to do that, let's create background audio clip, which is equal to audio file clip. We're going to pass an audio clip found, and we're going to pass our path. So remember, we have our path inside of the audio clip, and that's what we are going to pass to our background audio clip. So this is the same as when we have imported our video file clip here. Just this is an audio file clip. Okay, now we could create the background music. Going to be equal to background audio clip subclip. So actually we are assuming that our videos are longer, but in the case that our videos are shorter than our clip, we could subclip the background music to the clip duration. So let's say from 0 to clip.duration, so that our background music can't be longer than our clip duration. Another thing we could do now is compress our files. So let's do that. Resized clip is equal to clip resize. So this would resize our clip to 50% of its original size, which would make it smaller and also compress our file. So if you want to go into a bit deeper into compression, then you could refer to the FFmpeg documentation, where you have certain lines that you could use to compress files. For example, you could do something like this. ffmpeg minus e as input. So let's say we have an input MP4, and we could change the codec on it. Codec to be H.264 to a codec of AAC to output MP4. For example, this would compress our files. I'm not sure, like around 10 to 15, 20%. So that's something you could also do if file compression is really important in your project. Now we have our resized clip, and we are going to create the GIF from it. So write GIF name. So we could make something much more interesting here. We could maybe look at which parts of the video we want to create a GIF of, because if you're creating it from the entire clip, it's not going to be so much fun. But we could do something like subclip it to only 5 seconds or so, and then create the GIF of it. But let's just keep it like that. So this is something that you can experiment with. So let's create a clip with audio, which is going to be our clip, and we are going to set audio on it, and we're going to add our background music. So as you can see, the functions are pretty much self-explanatory. This is setting an audio to our clip. And if you want to mix things, you could do the following. So let's create our final clip, which will be a composite video clip. So a composite video clip can merge multiple things together. For example, if we already had audio and we wanted to add background music to it, then we would use this one. But in this case, we have a clip with audio and we have a clip overlay. So we want to merge those, clip with audio, and we're going to merge the clip overlay with it. Now we just need to save it as final clip, right? Video file. Now we need to provide the name, the path, which will be our video name, and we need to provide a codec, which will be libx264, and audio codec of AAC. So this is, if you can remember, this here where we have specified those codecs, this is exactly what we are specifying here. So this is a format which is going to make it more efficient to write. I'm not an expert about file formats, but if you want, you could do more research on that. There is also a thorough documentation of ffmpeg around this. So I think this should already be everything. We could test this out now. Let's actually do that. Run our application again and hope it runs. Okay, it opens. So let's first of all give it a thumbnail like epic first video. Now we are going to import our files. I again have my location here. Let's import track 1 and let's import video 1. Now let's click process. Now it opens our output location. We are going to go to output and select the folder. Now it should start running. Actually, we got an error here. ImageMagick is not installed on your computer. This is something I have mentioned at the beginning. Okay, we need 2 backslashes here, that's the problem. And there is also an error here. Okay, now let's try it out. Let's go track 1 again. Video 1, epic first video. Now let's pick our output folder again and start the process. Okay, so okay, that's our problem. For the GIF, we're going to change this to GIF. This didn't cause the problem, but this did. And for the thumbnail, we're going to go, I think the best option would be a JPEG file. Or JPG file, for example. And let's change this to thumbnail. Okay, let's try again. Lucky number 3. Let's again import track 1. Let's go with a smaller one, video number 3. Epic third try. Let's try the process now. This took quite some while to process. As I have mentioned, it is quite resource intensive, but let's see our output. Okay, let's open our GIF here, and we have created a GIF of our image. Let's see our thumbnail. There is a thumbnail, and let's see our video. Okay, this seems to be working. And as you can see, this is our overlay here. It is transparent and it is being added to our video here in the composite video clip. So that's basically it. That wraps up our simple editor. As you can see, we could go much deeper into this and create a lot more functionality. For example, we could drag and drop those videos, extend them or shorten them, but this would be a hundreds and hundreds of hours video, and probably at that point it would be better that you start developing your own project. You have the knowledge, you have the documentation for that, so it will be really exciting to see what you can build with this. Definitely leave comments and ask questions for any problem you have. I hope this was quite enjoyable for you and that you learned a lot throughout this video. So I hope you found this project interesting and that you were able to learn a lot. So we covered quite some topics here. We again used tkinter and developed our GUI. We touched on to object-oriented programming. We used MoviePy, and we also got our foot a little bit into FFmpeg and ImageMagick, which MoviePy uses under the hood. And we used a lot of other different Python modules and principles, like the OS, where we were searching for certain directories and moving through certain directories. We created file dialogues. We created random strings. We saved certain types to certain formats, and so on. So I hope you found this project interesting. Take a little break, or maybe review some lectures, or develop something in your own direction. Always leave comments, ask questions, and show us your projects or your ideas. So I hope you really enjoy this one, and see you in the next one.